You'll take your seats. We'll start the session.
He was silent for a long moment. He was silent for a moment. It was quiet for a moment. It was dark and cold. There was a pause. It was my turn. That was written by a robot.
I do think there's reasons to be anxious about the potential of AI. There are these objects in our homes, computers and mobile phones. We don't really understand them. We don't really understand how they work. And we don't know what they know about us. They seem to know quite a lot about us and we don't know much about them.
Machines are beginning to replicate our ability to see, to understand, and most importantly, to learn. As AI continues its relentless advance, nearly any job that is on some level routine and predictable is likely to be threatened by automation. Technological advance has always displaced workers, jobs are lost, but others in industries created by that innovation have always sprung up to replace them. But there are good reasons to believe that this time might be different.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rowan Phillips. I'm the Global Chief Product Officer at iProspect. I'm delighted you're able to join us for this conversation. The conversation is really around understanding the role of AI and, more importantly, the limitations of AI in both brands and platforms. So what we'd love to do today is have a conversation on what the journey's been in the last 2 or 3 years in terms of actually understanding the real implication of AI and machine learning, and then go into specific examples and some perspective in some of the limitations and some of the principles, in fact, that's being drafted as we speak across the industry. So I'm delighted to be joined by my fellow panelists, 4 of them. Antoine Dubois, the Senior Vice President of Global Strategy of Accor Hotels. Mark Labelle, the Executive Director for Research and Development at New York Times. Steve Cyrick, the General Manager of Microsoft Advertising. And Matthew Williams, the Head of Creative Impact at YouTube. A round of applause, please. So I want to kick off quite broad. Now that I think most of us, if not all of us, have a very clear and aligned definition of AI and machine learning, what impact has it had on your business? Let's start with you, Matthew, and head down. That'd be great.
Sure. So I work at YouTube, and I have a really cool job of trying to encourage like the better performance of creative on the platform. And I think, you know, when people think AI and Google, they think about sort of a lot of the consumer-facing products that we have. So the Assistant, the Cloud Vision API, these things that really can help consumers in their day-to-day life. So it's had a really large impact on the consumer side of the business, and we can talk a little bit more about like what that means. On the ad side of the business, though, it's actually we see it as something that's really valuable to help serve more valuable content to more users. So it is duly beneficial for us because it can make the user experience on our platform more valuable, which in turn, you know, leads to better brand equity for us. But it also helps our advertisers because they can serve ads at the right moment to what the user is searching for, interested in at a time. So I think across the company, there's broad implications, and it's sort of starting to impact every component of life across Google, and specifically at YouTube. It's really helping us provide a better experience for users.
For us at Microsoft, I mean, it's been profound, but also in many ways stunning. What was a business that was anchored by Windows and Office just 2 years ago is now anchored by cloud and AI corporately. So it has really transformed not only our culture, but certainly our business. And at the same time, from an advertising perspective, it's definitely broadened the agenda as we think about the agenda we have with our partners, which prior was very much an agenda that was rooted in sort of advertising tactics from a search engine marketing perspective or from a display or video perspective, is now much more of a marketing strategy conversation in terms of how do we really unlock a level of technology well beyond just kind of the advertising solutions that were part of the agenda previously. And it's also given us, as an industry, it's opened up opportunities around 2 agendas. Obviously, the one agenda that we're here to talk about in many ways is the business enterprise. but it's also unlocked this technology for good agenda that the last 2 years, for us that have been a part of the industry for many years, feels like it's been more amplified through AI and through just the incredible journey it's taken us on than any time previously.
Yeah, and so for us at the New York Times, so the New York Times is something like 167 years old. And so you can imagine what our org chart looks like. It looks like a royal family. And, you know, it's been surprising, I think, even in the last 2 years, how AI has worked itself into basically every nook and cranny of our organization, because we are, you know, we're a content creator, but we also have a subscription business. We also create consumer products that go beyond news into lifestyle, cooking, things like that. And everyone on the ground seeing the opportunities to draw these in has been incredibly impressive. A sort of special aspect of it for us is that, you know, we also have a duty to explain AI to our readers and to the world, and that gives us an opportunity to try to figure out what's real and what isn't, or what's not here yet, let's say, right? Because it is a rapidly evolving space and rapidly improving. And so in being able to use actual reporting to do that discovery work, to both explain it and then show people as well, right? Show, not tell, is you know, one of the big journalism mantras. That's really how we have I think a proving ground where it can be open-minded, but also, you know, somewhat judgmental or critical in the right ways. So that, I think, is a huge opportunity for us.
Hi, in terms of hospitality industry, Accor Hotel is more than 4,300 hotels today in the world, meaning that each day we are welcoming more than 700,000 people to stay in our hotels in everyday life, all day long, all weeks. And AI was already part of our business, let's say, on the B2B part with what we call the yield management, you know, when we try to change the price of our hotel depending all the ratio and the price we can have on the hotels all around our hotels. And when we see AI today is 2 words for us. First one is how we can personalize the customer experience via data and the knowledge. For example, to recommend me to wear a shirt today when I'm here. No AI told me this morning that I need to wear a shirt. That can be maybe a good idea. So in the personalized way can we industrialize the personalization we have for a consumer on a regular basis and be more predominant and anticipate their needs. And the second point is around how to be more seamless in our consumer journey. You know, when you move from your dream to go somewhere, you're looking for an hotel, you find an hotel, you book, you prepare your stay, and everything. We show that artificial intelligence can help us to be more seamless in all the process of booking in our universe. So yeah, for us, it's a big challenge.
So I want to stay on that, Antoine. So you mentioned personalized customer experiences. And obviously, as a hospitality brand, there are a lot of private moments with the actual consumers you interact with. So how do you balance the privacy and the expectation that, you know, I don't want to be interfered with versus the personalization from an AI standpoint?
Yeah, thank you for this question. People, when you arrive in a hotel, you love to be surprised, but you love to be normally recognized, to know your name and say, hey, mister, how are you? Since the last time you spent the night with us, and all this kind of thing. And we know that AI can play a big part around this aspect of recognitions. But I imagine that you all stay in Airbnb or hotels today in Cannes, and you all always have your privacy moment in your bedroom. You take a bathroom, and you want to sleep, and you call your family and all of that. And so far, we just launched some. In English, you say POC, right? POC tests, okay, POC, and to see how people react on some stuff. And so far, we try to put AI inside the room with Google Home, with Alexa, and all this kind of thing. And so far, what we just noticed is the fact that people are a bit scared to be listened in that private moment in a bedroom. So we will just need to find the good balance and the good way in this kind of moment of privacy when you believe that AI can allow you to link with your home, to link with your life, but also to make sure that you keep the privacy you want. And so far, when you have this new technology coming, people are a bit scared at the beginning. But I feel that when people will all have that at home, they will be used to, and it will become more familiar when they go in a hotel to link via AI, via Alexa, Google Home, or what kind of tool with their daily life in this universe. But so far, we just noticed that consumer, high-end luxury, economic, mid-scale, whatever the segment, they are still a bit worried about this moment and private life. But before, when you book and all this kind of stuff, if they have some personalization aspect in their booking moment, it doesn't look like an issue. It's on your mobile. You used to have some personalization on that. But on the real life, physical life, real moment, when you are between you and yourself, so far it's still a bit a challenge.
Okay, that's interesting. Mark, New York Times is transformed a fair bit. I think that's fair to say. Your digital subscription is growing significantly. You've got podcasts that are extremely successful, The Daily Show. Recently, I think with the royal wedding, you had a very interesting application of how you covered the royal wedding using AI. Could you just elaborate your thinking around that and how that actually panned out for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So we recognize that a lot of people are going to cover the royal wedding, and in trying to lean away from any kind of commodity coverage and find some breakthrough opportunity, what we zeroed in on was taking the live stream, and again, a lot of people were also publishing, and being able to provide a layer of real-time annotation and analysis using facial recognition. So as people walked in, and then during the ceremony itself, we could help you understand who was who. And for an American audience in particular, which was our primary target for it, you may know some of the celebrities. You may know some people that the Brits aren't likely to know, and vice versa. Or you might be able to spot someone, recognize them after a second or two. Oh, that's Idris Elba, but it may not be immediate. And so using facial recognition technology to provide that was a great unlock. But it ended up, that wasn't actually the feature that in and of itself that made it really useful, because when we demoed this to the styles desk, which was running the coverage, they said, oh, this is great. We can write bios of all of these people that are kind of like funny, because there are very few royalists who work at the New York Times, so we had some fun with it. And it was really the bios, that additional insight, just as a lower third or a chyron on the screen, that explained why that person was there, or something interesting about them while you're watching this. So for us, it was this opportunity to not override an event like that with some big voiceover or things like that detract from the experience, but we were able to answer the question you were just starting to ask when that camera cut to that person, and so on, right? So it's really the speed and accuracy, which are things we very much care about, but being able to use automation to make all of that work seamlessly.
So speed and accuracy, very clear, and I'm sure the other side of the coin would have been privacy. So as you're thinking about innovating in these new areas and scaling that up, how did you balance the questions around privacy, specifically in that case?
So that's a great question, because we did that on a Saturday morning, and then I think it was like Sunday afternoon, the ACLU of Northern California started going after Amazon, which is the technology provider we used for this, because of their use of facial recognition in law enforcement, right? And then there's more recently been some stuff around ICE and all that as well. And I think that this is it's a really interesting challenge. So very specifically on our use for the royal wedding, these were public figures in a public event that was being broadcast to billions of people, and we figured it was safe to say that's David Beckham, that we're not violating his privacy by doing that. And so that gives us the opportunity to test all of this. But I think we need to make sure, and this is a thing we've been working through from an ethics perspective, that we only allow that to be used within our organization in those kinds of settings, right? We're unlikely to do it, or we wouldn't do it with surveillance video or things like that. But we need to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So a way we've been thinking about it is, and starting to operationalize around, is that instead of having, the New York Times has a pretty lengthy ethics handbook that covers a lot of different scenarios. And again, it's probably 167 years old, like the organization. We are adding the AI knowledge into that existing ethics framework and that existing ethics book, as opposed to creating something separate off to the side. So that a reporter isn't thinking about it in those terms when they're just trying to figure out what they can do, particularly on deadline. And so that's really, I think, how we need to make sure that's fully integrated with the operations of the Times.
Got it. Steve, Microsoft is one of the leaders in the race to AI and machine learning. But from my perspective, it looks like you have a different take to how you go to market. So you're very much humans plus machine makes everything better. How do you actually take that to the market? How do you actually land it to people, humans, and what's the actual, I suppose, rollout process or something like that?
It's a good question, Ron. So, I mean, we definitely view that with the opportunity that we have with AI, there's tremendous responsibility. And we define responsibility today at Microsoft across 3 areas: privacy, cybersecurity, and ethical AI. So with ethical AI, we've actually, feel that as Microsoft, we need to take a leadership position in terms of how do we as an industry really get behind AI in a way that dignifies, that demonstrates integrity. So we've published a book that very clearly, outlines a set of principles. And it's principles that we've already identified through learning experiences. Like, for example, Tay. What we had with Tay in 2016 when we launched that chatbot and ran into some issues within the first 16 hours, and we pulled it down because it didn't deliver on what we believe is the right way to actually operate with AI. We believe it has to be safe. It cannot harm, for example. It has to be accountable. That is, the developers have to be accountable to what they're building. It has to be fair, without sort of prejudice. It has to be inclusive, no bias. It has to be transparent, so you know that you're operating. You walk into, let's say, a hotel room, Alexa's operating there and what Alexa knows and does not know about you. And then certainly it has to be private. There has to be a level of security and understanding as to what information is being collected. So we operate with those principles as we go forward. But at the same time, it's in recognition that AI is about amplifying human ingenuity. When we think about the definition of AI, it's not only machine learning and data science, but it's human judgment has to be very much a part of that equation.
Matthew, Google obviously been very vocal with the fact that AI is underpinning everything they do. How is that really coming to life from an advertising standpoint? When we think about consumers and how we can use AI from that standpoint, what are the initial learnings we got?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now for YouTube is that it's an assistive experience that we provide to our users, not something that our users are using, if that makes sense. Because we want to provide experiences that are sort of in the background so that there's not like another active step that the user has to take to feel like they have a more friendly experience on the platform. So. And that comes across in a lot of ways. We use machine learning to identify where users are in their journey to purchase something or what sort of life stage they are to serve more relevant content to them, not only just for advertising, but also on the platform in general, right? So, our goal as a brand, YouTube, is to keep people on the platform and keep them engaged on the platform because that adds value, like I said earlier, not only to us, but also to our advertisers. And then the way that we monetize that is by providing a similar experience to our advertisers, right? Because it all comes back to being able to sell more widgets for a lower cost. And so the more that we can provide that for our users, but it's all a seamless experience for the user. So there's nothing that they have to say in terms of how do I participate in this program? They can always opt out if they want to. But we find that the majority of users actually appreciate the value of the relevance that comes from the signals that we can use to connect and serve them ads that are more relevant. For example, I think everyone is familiar with if you just bought a car and then the display car ad follows you around, or you've been searching for a car, the display ad follows you around for the next 30, 60 days until that cookie runs out. But what we're able to do with YouTube is actually identify sort of when a purchase has been made and start showing you ads that are then a follow-on. So maybe you want to see an ad related to oil changes. You want to see an ad about maintenance. And so our machine learning empowers those experiences for our users without having a lot of additional work from the user standpoint.
Got it. I want to move track slightly right now to talk about talent and people. How do you guys approach that? Do you have a big army of AI specialists locked away somewhere, or are they roaming around Cannes with a rosé in their hand?
I think it's probably a mix of both. So it's something like if you look at something like brand safety, which has been in the news for quite a while now. We are hiring an army of 10,000 people to help identify some of this nefarious content that's on the platform. We're about 85% to that goal now. And they're really helping the machine learn and understand, right? Because even with 10,000 people, you can't identify all of the content that gets taken down. So we took down 9 million videos in Q1 alone. 70% of those were caught by a machine, which is a pretty staggering number, but there's still 30%. And so sort of the mantra we have is the machine can provide speed and scale, but the humans provide the nuance. And so that's where we're trying to sort of hone the machine's capability to learn and understand. But we still, I mean, it's not where in a place where you could just sort of flip a switch and go. And I think a lot of advertisers who come to us think like, how do I use AI? How do I use machine learning? And the answer is not just a one sentence. It's like you have to understand what you want to do with it. Working with the cloud team or working on something with Google Assistant. But for YouTube in specific, it's the humans that power the insights that then speed and scale are taken through machine learning.
And Steve, how does Microsoft approach talent and developing the scale you require, from a talent perspective to compete in the AI race?
In terms of how we manage, for example, the data?
Do you structure yourself in a way you have a specific team focused on developing AI, or do you actually have that across different products and all the other markets? What's the thinking around that?
Well, we do have a specific team that does our research and development around AIR, it's actually referred to, Artificial Intelligence and Research, and it's led by Harry Shum, who's one of our senior vice presidents. And again, we believe AI in many ways needs to be integrated throughout everything Microsoft does. But at the same time, we believe there's so much value in democratizing it in terms of the learnings that we can garner from that experience, making it available to our partners, making it available to the industry to really growth hack and build on, because those learnings come to us in the same way we gain from the learnings that we develop through our own resources. So, for example, we have a set of cognitive services that are leading across the industry in terms of the numbers that we make available. Mark and I were talking about some of the cognitive services that the New York Times is already exploring, for example, with Microsoft. We have over 35 available through APIs. So we make these tools available in the interest of continuing not only to drive innovation with our specific development teams, but also with the developers that partner with us. And together we feel like we can advance the industry in that agenda in really inspiring ways.
Perfect. Mark, I suppose you have a similar challenge to us like agencies, attracting talent. You're an editorial company. How do you compete with the likes of the Google and Microsoft to bring that talent into New York Times?
So in this moment, at least in the U.S., journalism is having a moment, and so that has helped me considerably in terms of recruitment and retention. Right, it's very easy for an individual to feel closely aligned to the mission. I don't know what happened around 18 months ago, but something shifted in the world.
When you say a moment, what do you mean?
The single best thing for driving circulation growth is having the president tweet at you, calling you the failing New York Times. If he was working on commission, he'd be an even richer man. So beyond that, to take one step back, it is the ability for an individual to really influence the mission of the New York Times, which is to create an informed and engaged society through high quality information products, and so that's a good start. We don't have the compensation package that that allows us to really go compete at market rates for the top data scientists and things like that. So we have to really lean on that part. And I think for us, even with an overall budget, where we have to really be smart. I'd say smarter than any prior generation of technology in build versus buy decisions. Right. It's easy for publishers. I think this is true of any creative agent or organization to fall into what's referred to as like not invented here syndrome. Oh, that wasn't invented here, so it sucks. We're not going to use it. And the Times has fallen into that trap in the past, and we are not able to do that here. So we have about half dozen data scientists who work on the things that are very much core New York Times specific problems. Subscription retention propensity, stuff like that I don't understand. And so from an R&D perspective, that's the team I run, what we try to do is really push people to think about whether this is a problem that is truly unique to the New York Times, or is this something that could essentially like inevitably get solved at internet scale, right? So things like translation, audio transcription, computer vision, things like that feel like things that are going to just be solved problems, and let's learn how to use those and partner with the right organizations that provide those solutions to us and really start there and then look back inward if we feel like we haven't found the right partner. So I think that's our approach.
Antoine, I want to get your perspective on the talent, but also, I'm sure you share the same challenge, which is what Steve says from Microsoft sounds fantastic. What Matthew says from Google sounds fantastic. Amazon, another platform that have AI capabilities. How do you actually navigate, the different, options available in partnering with these companies?
But we have to deal with them. we have to sign contract. We're making pitch, and because you're right. I mean, to attract the best data scientists, they are fully no interest to join a company like me, which is more around the hospitality industry, the best one. And goodness, they cost a fortune. They go through pure player and people dedicating on this universe. So we are more of people dedicating of planning data scientists, let's say planner, people who plan and who know the best partner to deal with and discuss with all the partners to agree with one point. What we have in home is really people who own the data platform that we own, and to make sure that we can select the good partners that can link with our data. But definitely, we cannot recruit the best one to join our companies. They want to work broader. They want to work for companies that can deliver tools for a lot of different companies. So we are facing, and we have to deal with that. That's life. But I can attract the best one in hospitality in my business. So
okay.
It's okay.
Hey, Ron, can I comment? Just build on that for a moment. I mean, I think that there's an important theme, though, for example, that Antoine's touching on. This is that the idea of interoperability. So as we think about AI technology, it's so important as an industry that we really think about the agenda around interoperability, because when you think about, for example, multi-sense in a multi-device, multi-sense world, and you think about voice, which is one of the early adoptions in that multi-sense world, you know, there are walled garden experiences, and then there are those experiences that are opening up. And because each of those AI, whether it's a digital assistant or agent, or whether it's a personal assistant like Siri, Cortana, Alexa, the interoperability really offers so much more to the consumer. And so we believe in the partnership, for example, that we have with Alexa. Alexa has a unique set of skills. And at the same time, Cortana has a unique set of skills. They very much are, you know, a shadow of, for example, Microsoft and productivity, and how do you think about Cortana in a world of enterprise. But that can be very complementary, for example, to Alexa in more of a world of life, in terms of life skills and life tasks. So that interoperability, I think, is really critical and important as we think about the agenda going forward and really driving an ecosystem that is very profitable in total for the consumers.
I agree. Alexa is a V1, and you need to build a V2, a V3, a V4. So as a guy on hospitality, I cannot pay for that. I mean, it's for you.
I've got the time check here. So one final question. For a lot of brands and folks in the room that are early in the process of actually developing capabilities in the area of AI and machine learning, what's the one thing everybody should prioritize, and what's the one thing that everybody should avoid, if you like, starting with you, Matthew?
Sure. I might have a little bit different response from the rest of the panel. Just specifically on the creative side, it's shifting the way that you think about building and reaching your consumer. I think we have lived in the TV world for so long where the creative agency gets a brief, the media agency gets a plan, and then the two don't meet again until they're actually slated to run on TV. And what we're really finding is consumers really value that assistive experience on the platform. And so if you actually bring the media plan to the front end and have that inform how you're building creative, we have the ability at YouTube to identify audiences that are most relevant for whatever you're trying to reach. But that does require you to rethink the way that you're building that creative. So in our world, it's just making sure that you understand who you're trying to reach. And I'm not just saying a 24-year-old male. What I'm saying is you're trying to reach the 24-year-old male who loves camping and is in market for a new car. And you can actually build an experience for him and a lot of people like him by making sure that you have that as part of your creative development process.
What's the one thing to avoid?
The one thing to avoid is assuming that all 18 to 24-year-olds are the same. Because I think that's what we assume when we build creative, and we see it all the time, and they're not. We're launching some tools and capabilities this week that help advertisers actually, take a kernel of an idea and expand it out so you can have 100 different versions of a creative to reach, the 24 who's into camping or reading or makeup or hairstyles. So the biggest thing for us to be is in this world of being able to use AI to reach audiences and use machine learning to identify signals across schools' properties, there's an experience that needs to happen for everyone at a moment in time. It's not just sort of one size fits all anymore.
Got it. Steve?
I love this saying, so tomorrow is here today. And I think it speaks really well to AI and just how transformative it's been for all of us as an industry the last 2 years. I don't know if it's widely known, but in 2016, machines reached human parity on object recognition. In 2017, human parity with speech recognition. And then in 2018, in March, earlier this year, human parity with reading comprehension. So AI is here. And so I think the task for us is to be, a little uncomfortable with the idea that it's not perfect yet, but begin to embrace it, find the way to see it really empower your organizations. And then the one thing, you said, what's the one thing to avoid? Don't be, discouraged or dispelled by the idea or the myth that you aren't going to fail, because you are going to fail. But you've got to be a little bit comfortable with that. So it's really kind of approaching it with a growth mindset and going for it.
Mark?
Speaking for the failing New York Times. So on a journalism perspective, when we do these AI-powered, we use it in coverage, we think a lot about the potential failure modes, right? So using the facial recognition example, misidentifying someone, that's a problem. We'd have to issue a correction and that sort of thing. And so we obsess over that. But, so I think AI is here today, and it works in certain ways in certain places. And a lot of it's about, you really need to think about where it does and doesn't. I think the thing to do is really understand where you think your customers will have a tolerance for failure, because you're not going to be able to protect them from failure at all times. But I think that there are a lot of situations where people are like, oh, it's a robot. I wasn't expecting it to be perfect. There are other times where customers have an incredibly short fuse with something going wrong. And it's all about the context of how they run into that kind of situation. And that's how we try to think about it, as opposed to just saying, stay away from voice, do more AR, things like that at the topic level, because you can do voice bad, you can do voice good, you can do AR bad, you can do AR good. But that's really understanding your customers through that lens, I think, is really important.
Well, in the hotel industry, truly believe that when you go to the hotel, what you want is all the things you have at home, but augmented. And if we can find the nice angle of using AI to have an augmented hospitality experiences with AI, it will be the future. I'm looking for a company who will be able to work with us to build the hotel of future via AI as a test, as a POC. So if you know someone, I'm interested.
I'm sure we can find you one right here.
We can find you. We can help you.
With that, I'd love to thank you guys for your time. Really enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure you guys are sticking around for a drink or two. If there are any questions, please feel to grab them. Thank you, guys, and a round of applause for the panelists, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have so many people who are non-verbal but still have so much to say.
I want the exact same information that my hearing friends have. There are barriers to communication everywhere, but I think it's time we look at the barriers as opportunities to reach out to everyone.
Soundscape fills in a lot of the mental map as you move. Approach the intersection. You can just put it in your pocket and go.
With ALS, you become locked in. But we see technology as a way to give back what ALS has taken away.